Well, hello, YouTube. Hope you're doing great. I am so excited to bring none other than the amazing Drew Forde, aka That Viola Kid, on the Mind Over Finger podcast this week to have a great conversation about what it means to be a classical musician in 2024, what he means by being an extra classical musician, why that's needed right now, and all of his takes on being a creator, being a business minded musician, and so much more. So you are in for a treat. For everything Drew Forde and That Viola Kid, go to thatviolakid.com. For all of the things Mind Over Finger, you go to mindoverfinger.com. And before I pass on the mic to Drew, I want to remind you to join me inside the Mind Over Finger Facebook community to find a great variety of resources on all things mindful practice, performing at your best, and building a career in classical music. I have a great series of live Q&A sessions going on this time of the year where I'm going to answer all of your questions about building your ideal performance, from planning for it, practicing for it, and then really bridging that gap between the practice room and the stage. So join me inside the Mind Over Finger Facebook community. That's at facebook.com/groups/Mind Over Finger. And again, visit mindoverfinger.com for all things Mind Over Finger. And without further ado, here's That Viola Kid, Drew Forde. Drew Forde, it's so exciting to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Renee. I'm excited for the conversation.
Drew, I find it hard to believe that anyone out there would know who you are, but for the very few who might not know, I would love to hear more about you, about that journey, how it unfolded for you, and what that looked like for you.
So, where would you like me to start? Because I can go all the way back. You know,
Well, this is the
um,
beauty. I like to live a lot of freedom for my guests. So, where do you want to start?
Northside Hospital, Atlanta, Georgia. Nah. So I pretty much started viola when I was 12 in middle school, and I don't know what it was. I'd always wanted to like kind of play music and vibe out to the records that my mom and my dad would play when we were cleaning the house or on a long road trip. And so I like was introduced to the violin and the viola through school trips in elementary school, going to see the Atlanta Symphony. And I always thought, okay, that's kind of cool. That was hard though. I don't know if I would want to spend time doing that. And then all of a sudden, fifth grade, fast forward to fifth grade, and we're in our libraries, like during the Scholastic Book Fair. There's like Harry Potter posters everywhere. This teacher named Amanda Sellers at the time, her name is Amanda Moran nowadays. She gave a presentation of like, here's what you can play after your first year in orchestra. She started playing Pink Panther and SpongeBob and Adam's Family, and I was like, oh, she knew her target audience, right? And she sprinkled on, if you stay in orchestra from sixth grade and you stay in seventh grade, seventh graders get to go to Disneyland. And I was like, Disney World, sorry, Disney World, Disney World in Florida, Disneyland in Los Angeles. I swear I'm not from here.
Well, I've never been to either, so it's all the
You've
same
never
to
been to
me.
either?
No.
Oh, you got to, Renee. Okay, okay, okay. If you ever come visit, we got you got to go. We got to go to Disneyland.
Sounds good. I'll take you up on
Okay,
that.
okay, cool. All right. So anyway, this is the carrot, right? This is the carrot that's being held in front of me, and so I was like, okay, let me join. And so the first day of like orchestra class, we have the petting zoo, as you know, and I didn't feel. I was like nonplussed. I was just like, whatever. These are all cool. I don't care. And everybody started saying the name of their instrument around in a circle, and I was like maybe 75% through the circle. Nobody said viola. I was like, man, okay. I'm gonna play viola, and everybody's like, and there was like maybe two or three more afterward, because viola is like that dirt instrument. And so I've kind of carried that first introduction into viola of like the gasp and like, are you sure about that?
Mhm.
And I've tried to lean into that for my entire life. So um, that's how it started. And then as soon as I picked it up and played it, I was hooked. I was like, wait, this is kind of interesting. Okay, but it's hard. But
I
when you get good, it sounds good. Yeah.
Well, I agree with that. What you don't know is I'm a violinist, but would love to play the viola. I've actually purchased a viola. I still don't play it, but one day for sure. But I should have been a violist. I just
I
love that
mean,
instrument.
any day you want to start, hit me. I'll give you I'll give you a good introduction. I think the problem with viola is like the repertoire doesn't get good until like 1900 or like 1880 or something. It takes a while. So you got to start with the good stuff.
What I find really fascinating about your story, well, a few things, but that introduction that that teacher created when you said she knew her audience, yes. I hope that the teachers out there are taking notes. You have to make it enticing for kids to join. Like, what a fabulous way to present instruments to kids.
I'm telling you, a trip to a theme park is a really good carrot to get through the first year because it's painful. What's the payoff, right?
Mhm.
Unforgettable experience. So
Yes.
yeah.
Unforgettable
Mhm,
experience. I love that.
mhm,
And
mhm.
it's interesting what you say too about how you were the first who mentioned the viola. And then after, a few
Couple
people
more
joined
people
in.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you just got to raise your hand and then the people who might have not done that without that incentive join in.
It's initiative really has more power than you think.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's very fitting for what kind of I actually don't even know the word in English for this. Auspicious? Is auspicious what it
Mhm.
is?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because
Probably.
it's kind of the career you're leading right now is I
Mhm.
feel like you're someone who raises his hand and starts movements. Am I wrong?
I you kind of have to. If it is to be, it's up to me. You can't really do it alone, but getting started really helps. And so, like when I was in college, I was like, man, how am I gonna make a career as a musician? Like people they don't even know what a viola is. They like mispronounce it. So what am I gonna do? Like I want to have kids. I want to be a dad. I want to like build a legacy, become financially free. These are all things that I want, but I'm tethered to this instrument. What could I possibly do?
Yeah.
And the answer was build an audience. And so I was like, okay, let me work on doing that. And so then began the multi-year, pretty much the full decade of just like working on becoming a better content creator, working on trying to become a better violist, and like telling that story, and the longest story arc I could think of.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to get back to this. Can I take you
Yeah.
back, however, to from school to college? What made it so that you wanted to do this as a profession and then went to college?
It was kind of a coin flip because I wanted to do science, but that didn't have money in it either. That's just so I definitely didn't. I wasn't about the whole capitalism game
Mhm.
back then. I It was a 50-50 coin flip, and I figured or I reasoned I could always come back to science later if I got bored with music.
Yeah.
My body is going to deteriorate faster than my mind. Little did I know, it's not really deteriorating as fast as I thought it would, which is good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm glad I made this decision to
And
well, the reason being is I love to do it, and I hate to tell the story because it, it's like pretty formative, but I don't want this person to have the credit
Mhm.
for creating for me creating what I've created. I want to take full credit on that. But there was a teacher that kicked me out of her studio, her teaching studio, the summer before senior year of college. And it was accompanied with a letter that was just like, you don't have what it takes to be successful in the music industry. Like, I'm rescinding my recommendation for you to get a scholarship to get a new instrument. And like, it was just like, whoa. And it was this blowback because I was working hard and I was at a summer festival at that
Yeah.
time learning chamber music, like, because that's my passion. My passion was never to be in an orchestra, but she was trying to forge me into that, and I didn't want to be that. I was wanting to be like a soloist chamber musician, so that plays viola. Uh, but so our future visions of me didn't align, and so she decided to
Mm.
kick me out. And I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind that she didn't believe in me. Um, it was really good fuel, um, and I think I've used it up. So I
Yeah.
feel okay now. But that was always in the back of my mind.
And that's amazing how what we make events mean impacts our life. I was in the coaching session this morning with my music mastery experience participants, and this is something we were talking about, that when something happens, there are the facts and then what we make it mean. And for you, it appears that it was a juncture, and right, we just met, so you could tell me if I'm way off.
Hmm.
But it was a juncture and something happened, and you used that for you instead of against you. And I think that is so inspiring.
Part of it is I kind of I've never had a problem of like envisioning my future. Like,
Mm,
what do I want to be? What do I need? What makes me happy? And can I do that in the future? I've never had problems thinking about that. And her perspective of me, her vision of me was so unrecognizable that I couldn't allow her to have power over me.
mhm,
And I think that might get in the way of some people where somebody else's vision for their future is different than their own, but they kind of like retract or recoil when people express a difference of vision. But I've realized that, you know, they don't have to live my future. I have to live it. So if we disagree, we're just going to have to disagree
yeah.
because I'm going towards this thing and you're not even seeing the same thing. Is that a little too woo woo, or does that make sense?
No, I think that embodies agency over one's life. That's perfect.
Yeah, gotta have
Yeah. And no, and I think that's something that people really, really need to hear, because you and I are gonna talk about this, but the world of classical music, I feel, is both needing to change and is changing, but there are still so many people out there that, enter college with dreams of a career in music, but are someone letting themselves being guided or drifted towards a vision that is not their own. So I think it's really, really important for them, for all of us to hear that, because life doesn't stop after college, right? Throughout our entire lives, we have vision, and it's so important to have that agency that I was just talking about. If I take you back to what you're mentioning in terms of asking yourself what you wanted and
it.
realizing that you needed to build an audience, can you walk us through that a little bit? How that
Hmm.
you came to these realizations?
Well, I didn't do it alone. I'm always looking. I think opportunity is everywhere. You just got to have your eyes open and have your mind open. Not so open that your brain falls out. I learned that one the hard way. But having an open mind to, new information is good. So I the reason why my brain fell out, this realization came from being roped into an affiliate marketing company. They had a conference in Colombia, and the keynote speaker was named Gary Vaynerchuk, and that was the day I met Gary V. I didn't meet him, but I saw him speaking from stage, and he kept the one thing that I remembered that he drove home is like, whether you like it or not, you are a media company now. If you make Facebook status changes, you are a media company, baby. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? And that kind of expanded my mind to what I could be and what I so often we're told you're just a violist, you're just a
Yeah.
violinist, you're just a cellist, but it's really quite the opposite. We're very multifaceted, and it's just a part of who we are. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you've done that in such a creative way. I mean, I've been following you for years. Years. I remember joining Instagram at the beginning when it was just pretty pictures at the time, and, like, quickly you took over as that Viola Kid.
Yeah,
Right?
I was trying to figure it out, and I still kind of cringe because that's like 20-year-old Drew, but I'm 32, so I'm just a very different human now. And
But
I
well,
look back at that human, and I'm like, you're such a kid.
no, but what an amazing record of growth and evolution.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
I'm thankful for Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Instagram, you posted several weeks ago a blog entry. You have a
Oh
great
yeah.
blog, and I'm going to put the link of that blog in the show notes.
Thank you.
And you talk about being extra classical.
Mm,
And I really thought, okay, he needs to come here on the show and talk about that because that is a different way of seeing things. And that's what
mm,
we need these days in 2024. We need all of the ways of seeing all of the things. I think we have the ability right now with the technology that we have. I feel like a lot of the gatekeepers are gone. And the only thing stopping us really is our imagination or our willingness, maybe to follow our intuition at times. So, extra classical, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
this is a thesis that is. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction um, to this idea. It's something that is formulating in real time. But I've always imagined that we as string players are particularly narrowly siloed in the music industry at large. We're not songwriters. We're not really producers. We're not really like we hire producers. We have agents. We don't really have many string player like contractors at the level of like the non-musician like community, right? So it's really interesting how we are so narrowly siloed in our skill, whereas we delegate the essential parts of business to other people who and when you do that, you open yourself up for risk of being taken advantage of, risk of being decoupled from your actual economic value that you're delivering. So it's a whole mindset shift that I think we need to approach as string players, number one. But also number two, I really feel that the way string players connect with music can expand. And let's go on a quick trip, and this is kind of like what I'm trying to do with Whole Soul, my string quartet. We have in music, you have a few different. When you're talking about pop music, we're not talking about classical music. We're talking about commercial music, pop music, other genres, blues derivatives, jazz, hip hop, R&B, soul. You have a rhythm section. It's the drums and the bass, percussion, extra perks, weird sound effects, right? Creating a rhythmic vibe, a groove, right? You have a leads section, which is like a singer or a lead instrument, like an electric guitar, and they're creating the melody, and they're front facing, and they're the part that everybody hums, right? You have the pads, which are the chordal cradle. It shows the harmonic narrative as it develops, right? And so you see where this is where strings reside. Strings reside in the chords when you're playing non-classical music. We sometimes will have a melody, especially in an intro or an outro or maybe a bridge. There'll be a breakout string section, but it's the strings are so close to the vocals that in like the harmonic frequency range that if you play them at the same time, one of them has to give. And usually, if there are words, it takes more priority in music. So strings are often back, right? We
Yeah.
occupy we occupy the leads and the pads, but we never occupy the rhythm section, which is interesting. That's like 33% of like the composition of music that we're not giving value to with our
Yeah.
current technique. So I've been diving down the rabbit hole of Daryl Anger and like bluegrass and fiddling and learning the percussive chopping techniques that have been created for decades, just not popularized. And I'm like positing a notion that we need to incorporate this education in the broader scope of string pedagogy if we want to at least create more opportunities for ourselves as string players to participate in the music industry. Now, I'm advocating for creating my competition, and like people are going to take, you know, bread off my plate, but that's okay. Like I care more about the string art,
Mhm.
and I care more about like, you know, having people of color like me being seen in our element and having a way for us to connect to the stringed instruments. Because the one criticism they get from the classical music community often is that hip hop or rap is not music.
Mhm.
And that is so uneducated a stance. It's baffling that even people like Wynton Marsalis have said it. So I think that the technique needs to catch up a little bit to the massive innovation that's happened since 1750. You know, and
Yeah.
that's what I want to apply with my technique and with my messaging and with my string quartet.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that when people give themselves permission to do this, often by seeing people like you taking action, being change makers, I think it's very empowering because a lot of time if people want to maybe approach just try something new and they do what you said at the beginning, which is maybe hire a team or hire producers, you're kind of at the mercy of their knowledge and their perspective. And that can cause a lot of indecision and confusion. But when you educate yourself and begin to have an understanding of the entire scope of the operation, this is when your own true voice can really start to come out because you have power over your message.
In all aspects of it, all dimensions, right? And you can
Yeah.
make better decisions. This is actually super lining up with a book that I just checked out from my local library. It's called Range by David Epstein. Essentially, the thesis of the book is that as we move farther into the future and automation of repetitive tasks continues, we will, instead of being specialists, we will need to actually be more generalists, understanding a wide array of topics and having uh, built experience with many different uh, aspects of life and actions, and be able to, and it'll allow us to make better decisions and synthesize information better. I'm only in chapter 3, but it's it's very scientific. He takes a lot of historical and sociological studies from history, talking about like uh, grandmaster chess players and how when you change the rules slightly of a chess game, they become less than an amateur.
Mhm.
It's more of just like playing out the game over and over and building experience rather than you know situational awareness and situational like flexibility. It's very complex. I'm still synthesizing my thoughts about it, but I think that's what an extra classical player is. It's somebody who understands the many different aspects: production, composition, improvisation, many different genres, understanding many different genres, so you can, and how to best serve the music as a string player. Because sometimes you just, all you need is a little choppy chop. You don't have to like throw a virtuosic solo on it. Like, how
Yeah.
do you serve the music better? And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm learning right now.
How do you serve the music better? I really like that. How would you, let's say, put together a how-to guide to get started as a extra classical musician for someone who's listening right now and
Mm.
they sound very, not they sound, they feel very excited about what you just shared, but they don't know where to begin. What would be a good place to start?
That is really, really tough to answer. Um, if you wanted to just be me, you would start learning about photography and videography and editing and making content. So you have a channel to share your work. But that doesn't have to be the first thing you do.
Yeah.
Um, if you're like me, you like know how to record. You know how to do some basic mixing. Like if you're in a pinch, you could do a little bit of mastering, but you like not quite sure. Like you just need to have the levers. You need to be able to control the levers of your message, and then you would also be spending time listening to music that really brings joy to you. And it may not just be classical. Like it could be like screamo. It could be
Mhm.
death metal. It could be prog rock. It could be the blues. It could be Celtic fiddling. Like whatever it is, like lean into it and find a record that you really like and just try to replicate the playing bit by bit. I would also say listen to other instruments, watch other instrumentalists. I've actually gotten better at my rhythm by just watching drummers
Mhm.
because there's some drummers, they have such economy of motion that they're just grooving. It's not even calculated. They're moving their body at a tempo and everything's just happening and it's smooth. And so I'm learning how to move my bow with more complex groove in mind,
Mhm.
which has been an interesting project. It's fascinating. Um, Looking at guitarists and realizing, oh, they play with shapes. They're not looking at their frets. They're just playing shapes. And I realized, oh, I have to be more methodical about how I play double stops and chords when I play
Mhm.
Bach. And no, so now I'm getting better as a player because I'm realizing, oh, shapes. So I'm like starting to understand these different things. And so my plan is, through a newsletter, Grace Notes, I'll be providing some of these resources um, as I develop them and as I develop them for my students. So I didn't mean to get into like an educational role or anything because I don't really feel like that, but I definitely want to like share kind of my experience. I think it's fun, it's different, and it's refreshing.
Yeah. As I was listening to you, I was amazed at how apt we are at making connections. And I would almost tell these people, if you want to get started, just start anywhere because anything that you're exposed to will spark something in you. Your brain is brilliant. I once heard someone say if they could manufacture the brain, no one could afford it. It would be too expensive.
uh,
So by exposing yourself to anything, you'll have these little spark of inspirations, and the brain is so good at making all of these connections that something will come out of it.
it's interesting also in this book, Range by David Epstein. Um, he he cited some studies of people in Russia right around the Russian Revolution when there was this mass industrialization in the city centers, but it was much slower in the more rural areas. What was really interesting is the people in the city centers started seeing their IQ levels rising
Mm,
because just the level of systems and the ideas that are presented in cities had an impact. Coffee, coffee consumption and stuff like that. Um, but in the rural areas, they didn't have the same objectivity as city people. So when researchers would go into the rural areas of Russia, they would like draw a circle that's not filled in, and they would ask them what that is, and they said that's the moon. But then they would color it in, and they would say that's like a wheel or something. Like they didn't. It was just interesting how they perceived the world. Now, what was interesting is when what the city dwellers developed was more of a relational understanding of the world. Like, how are things like each other? Not how they're different, but how are these things like each
Yeah.
other?
Yeah.
And that actually made them more capable of understanding more complex concepts. So what's really interesting is I think the more you learn widely, the more connections you see among different things, and it allows you to make more complex thought processes and decision making, which is a compelling claim. And it's literally, if you look on the book, it says Malcolm Gladwell,
Mm.
the author of Outliers, saying that it takes 10,000 hours to get good at something, and specialization is the future. I'm paraphrasing, but on the book Range, he's quoted as saying, "I've never been so delighted being told I was wrong." And it's really fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, Range, David Epst
Range,
David
David
Epst
Epstein.
I'm gonna put a link in the show note. That sounds fascinating. It's actually a great segue in another question that I had for you,
Hmm.
because all of these connections that you're making, all of these really amazing experiences that you are not only creating, but also being exposed to as a result of creating your own unique path. I was reading on your bio, and it said that you were called the future of our field by Sphinx organization president Afa Dworkin.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit, in your opinion, what do you see for the future of classical music?
I see the future of classical music being similar to right now, like an important museum of like the art that came before us hundreds of years ago. It's crazy how I feel so connected to people that have been dead for hundreds of years.
Mm,
It's kind of wild, like how I feel so much tenderness for Shostakovich, so much empathy for his struggles,
yeah.
right? I feel for Mozart, never feeling that level of connection or financial stability. I don't want to live his life. You
Mhm,
know, you know what I mean? Um, that being said, I think that orchestras, if we're just talking about orchestras, because that's like classical music,
mhm,
that's kind of where it's relegated to in one silo, right? I think it reflects more of the culture of today. I think it's going to have more outreach to artists who are creating art today and being more of a megaphone of the music of our times. I think that's possible. I think it's work that's already being done. I just see more of it. I see it being more accepting, and I think when this decision happens, people, the children of today, are going to be able to develop a relationship with their orchestra that lasts their lifetime. But if you're not presenting something to them that captures them, that targets the audience that they want to get, like, they're not going to receive or earn that audience. uh I think that even for string players, the future of our music is we are playing in all the genres. We are making interesting music that is for our time. Like, I have a dream. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but I would love to write a hip hop symphony one day.
mhm,
Like, that would be so sick. But I don't think it would be like Mahler.
mhm.
I think it would be super different. So these are things that, you know, I, I can't really think too much about because I'm trying to pay rent. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, capitalism be capitalizing on my butthole, on these cheeks. No, for real, because there are a lot of factors during our time that are bothering the music industry in general. You've got inflation, you've got wars across the ocean, you've got
Yeah.
possible recessions, you've got higher interest rates, so donors and businesses aren't making as many profits. So because they're not making profits, they don't need to, shelter those profits with donations,
Yeah.
right? So we just have to realize where we fit into the macroeconomic landscape and realize you have to make decisions.
Mhm.
How are you going to survive when, uh, things, when the government isn't making sure that you get paid like it is in Europe? That's how it is in America. We just, if you can't get that orchestra job, it's really hard to make a living. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how do we do that. Maybe I can help people understand how to do it.
Yeah. That's a question that I ask in the round of rapid fire question. And if you want, we can transition into this, but
It's your show. I'm here for you.
that's right. All right, let's do this. I'm making
Okay,
an executive decision.
let's
Um,
go.
I ask guests, what their life looks like. What does that look like for you to have this extra classical aspect of your life, performing, making a living? Can
Mhm.
you tell us about that a little bit?
About my life, like
Yeah.
what I'm doing. I'm a freelance musician here in Los Angeles, California. So I do a lot of random things. I'll do a lot of studio sessions for many different things: video games, indie artists, major label artists, motion pictures, television. I'll perform live at some of the bigger venues like Hollywood Bowl from time to time with pretty big artists. I'll sometimes do award shows. Sometimes I'll teach kids. Sometimes I'll like go and play for a charity here or there. Um, and what I'm really focusing on now is like building my businesses.
Mhm.
It's not enough to just kind of freelance and fly by the wind. I'm glad I'm able to do that. I'm thankful, but it's hard to scale because your time,
Yeah.
you can't, once you've maxed out on time, you've maxed out on income when you're playing the earned income game. I'm transitioning into playing the equity game where I own businesses that generate revenue, and sometimes that's asynchronous to me being present or even delivering the value myself. The system, the business that I'm building can deliver value to other people. And so that's kind of what I'm developing on two fronts: Whole Soul Music LLC and my own creator business. So
Mm.
I'm getting clearer about what my objectives are to achieve the the life that I want in the future. But you kind of have to learn about business. You kind of have to learn about how money works. There's a lot of steps to this. And I've been reading a lot of books, especially since the pandemic. I have a whole bookshelf in the closet that I went through, just trying to understand it a little bit better. And
Mhm.
once you understand the money game, then you can figure out how to construct your plan to achieve what you need.
Yeah, yeah. What if you feel comfortable sharing, what are these businesses about? What kind of services, do you offer?
Well, Wholesome Music LLC is my string quartet right now. So we provide string compositional or string arrangement services to individuals. Like we got a client out in North Carolina who's getting married, and so she wanted some hip hop arrangements of some J. Cole and Mac Miller. So we're writing and recording those string arrangements for her to perform via MP3 while she walks down the aisle. We don't have to fly out there,
Yeah.
and we still captured that value and delivered that service. So that's really interesting. We're also performing luxury destination weddings for high net worth individuals um, at remote locations, and so we're currently looking to connect with more luxury wedding planners that are serious about delivering the highest quality string playing on the market. And the other sector is our live performance, where we perform for showcases and for other artists, for video shoots, for recording sessions. Um, this is on the DL, but we recorded for an upcoming JLo doc. with Azima Ramsey. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And in our first year, we recorded for Hosier's album, Unreal Unearth. So that's Wholesome Music LLC. I'm gonna try to continue to build that. There's a media component that we can build, maybe a future label component, artist management, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then on this side, I have my personal business, my personal brand, and I'm building out Grace Notes newsletter as like a way for me to at least start building my creator business and actually having more connection to my audience that is uncorrelated to an algorithm.
Mm.
Because if I'm going to take my limited amount of time that I have now to make a piece of content and I have 112,000 followers on Instagram and I post it and only 5,000 see it because of an algorithm, that's frustrating because I didn't work hard and give up my 20s to build something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So I definitely, the newsletter is the carrot for me to, I want to respect your email. So I want to deliver value to your email every Friday. And that's what I'm doing on my creator business side for
Mhm.
now. When I get that business building and it has a little bit of revenue from ad sales, I'm going to use that to hire an editor to help me edit my YouTube video so I can get my YouTube business back going. I just don't have time to take off to like live my life,
Yeah.
you know, and I do need to have time to rest. So that means it's time to hire, and I'm going to do so aggressively as I scale my income.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us this glimpse as to what it, it looks like in your head, in your business. I think it's hugely inspiring because it shows how when you put when you put the vision to work and you start to get some knowledge on things that you can do, you can really start to create something amazing. And can really sense your passion for it and your interest for it, which sometimes if we're a classical musician that maybe just adhered to the beaten path and what's been done before, sometimes we sense that frustration, this disillusion. It's kind of a little bit of a disempowerment at times, not always. I know plenty of musicians who are, let's say freelancers and totally thriving and flourishing and really happy with this. So this is for those who perhaps are not feeling fulfilled, let's say. Um,
Mm-hmm,
b
mm-hmm.
but when you have this sense of vision and it's your business, it feels different. I feel the same way
Yeah.
with Mind Over Finger. I think about it all the time, and all of the work that I do there when I create a training, when I create a podcast episode, it feels so enriching, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
so connected to everything that I create because it's my baby, and it's wonderful to have that sense of direct impact on my own life as opposed to constantly wait for jobs offers or requests. So thank you
Oh
for
my
sharing that.
goodness. Oh my goodness. The torture of waiting for an email to come in. Am I going to be able to pay my rent? Like I cannot I cannot tell you the amount of anxiety. There's a reason why I'm powered by coffee. It's that old age old anxiety of the moment I grabbed my diploma from the Juilliard school. I was like, I am screwed, bro. What? Like, what do you mean? There's no connections to like make money doing this thing that, if you're going to conservatory and getting a degree in this thing, you're batting in the top 10 percentile of people doing your thing. Because let's be real, most people would not even bother.
Mhm.
So, yeah, truly pat yourself on the back, but that's just the beginning. You're just getting started. Okay. So, yeah, I definitely feel that like that cliff, that feeling of falling off the cliff, but that feeling of falling off the cliff should inspire you to build a plane on the way down. That's just
Yeah,
that's the only thing you can do,
I love
you know.
that. Yeah. Once again, it's really attaching the meaning you want to your life circumstances.
Mhm.
Drew, there's two things before I let you go today. I'd love to hear a piece of advice that you would have for the listeners.
Hmm. Don't be afraid to learn about that weird thing that seems unrelated to your art. I think we as artists get really, at least string artists, we get very siloed on, yeah, I am a violinist. That's all I do. And we take pride in that, but I think that actually makes you a commodity. So I really want you to realize that looking at other things really with interest and passion, the same that you have for your stringed instrument, it'll teach you how to connect the two. And having a connection, whatever it is. My friend Sarah Jane Kenner, I think she just got married, and I don't know her new last name, but hungry musician.
Yes.
She connects her love of music and food and content creation, and there is a real deep connection between the two, and you can hear it in her sound. It makes her a better player. It makes her a fuller artist. So I would implore that you get a little nerdy on something different. Put your instrument down. There'll be plenty of time to practice. Trust me. And then learn something new.
Mm, I love that. That would be a great actionable tip. Just put the instrument down and go learn something new.
Yep. Do
Yes.
it.
All right. Well, I just combined the last two questions into one.
Oh man. Oh snap.
Unless
See, you're efficient. What's up?
unless there is another actionable tip that you'd like to share.
Uh I feel like I'm just gonna be turned into a big old cliche, but I advocate for being committing to being a lifelong learner because the more you learn, number one, the more you earn. Hence the rhyme. But also, it opens your mind to new possibilities and helps you see things that you didn't used to see.
Yeah.
And it's truly changed my life. I think that books are the biggest hack. They're the biggest hack because to do it, to write a book, especially don't just read anything. Like definitely do some research and see like what you want to learn and see what people say about it before you read. But you know the amount of effort it takes to write a book. Why would you want to do that?
Right.
You got to think about that. Why would you want to do that? It seems painful. It seems like torture. There's a lot of work. And you get to read that. You get to benefit from all that work. That's just such a hack. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Drew, please tell us where we can find you. I'm going to have all of these links in the show notes, but where is your preferred place of meeting the audience?
Yeah, come through on IG. I am definitely a millennial. Okay. No, come find me on Instagram at that Viola Kid. I'm on TikTok. Oh snap! It's TVK. YouTube, that Viola Kid. If you go to my Instagram bio, if you tap on that link, you'll be able to join my newsletter. It's on Substack. It's called Grace Notes. If you're on Substack and you already do that thing, come subscribe to my newsletter. I drop a new newsletter every Friday, and I combine a mixture of like lessons from books that I've learned, content that I've watched, experiences that I've had, and I'll even throw in a dose of me building in public, me talking about what I've done for my businesses that week. Look, I went to the post office, picked up some mail, got our tax documents today. You know, just stuff like that. But I just feel like, from the audience feedback they've liked the building in public aspect. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of cool. And like people think that they don't hear from me on social media because I'm just like chilling. No, I'm not.
It's the incubation period
I'm training. I'm in that Rocky montage right now.
in your lab doing all sorts of experiments.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm changing my mind constantly. So you'll
Mm.
see me change strategy rapidly because of a new piece of information that that I'm presented with, which is important. You should be
Yeah,
malleable. You gotta adapt. So
absolutely. Yeah. Drew, thank you so much for this. I feel that this is a message a lot of people needed to hear. It is so inspiring to see the inner works of your mind, inner workings, and I I really hope that this is inspiration for people to be just a little bit extra classical moving forward and get interested and listen to their vision.
thank you so much for using the word extra classical. Let's get it.
Yes. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Renee. It's a pleasure.